Hello, this is John with Theology Ed. This is part 22 of the iPet Goat 2 Explained series. In this part, we're going to continue looking at sharks. We looked at one shark in the previous one, and we're going to continue digging into sharks this time as well. I've not found much as far as sort of esoteric or occult symbolism in sharks yet. I've dug a bit, and nothing I've found is super satisfying. So I'm not going to be digging into a lot of occult meaning and significance in this video. What I'm going to do is look at the various sharks. So first, we looked at the timeline in the last video. And I talked about how we have the June 21st eclipse in 2001, but the attacks didn't happen for a few months. And then we go up and we get to the Great American Eclipse. Then we get to the pandemic a couple years after that, this year in March, the World Health Organization declaration of the pandemic. And now we're approaching the eclipse this year, the eclipse and the buck moon. The eclipse is tomorrow, actually. And we're going to be looking for this, we're entering this period that really starts to get a lot more active in iPet Goat 2. Though I suggested I don't necessarily think it's going to be enormous changes immediately, just like in 2001. Now, that isn't to say that it couldn't be enormous changes. I discussed one attack in the last video, and that's this one. The only one that I see that I'm confident in iPet Goat 2 is represented as hitting. And it's this one that almost hits the buck rabbit, or remember, Trump is represented with the antlers of the buck here when we get the perspective from the side. So it looks like the one that almost hits Trump, like this shot taken at Trump, or on the board where it looks like the shark is attacking the president. Okay, and so there's this shark that attacks the president, and we see it again in this scene. I talked about that, where the shot seems to be taken from the 23rd, and this is the one that hits just before the buck moon, just like in all those other shots scenes, and yet doesn't seem to be catastrophic. Like I mentioned in one video a while back, it looks like a pea shooter almost. Like it doesn't necessarily look like this is a huge thing. But it may be. Obviously, the consequences and effects of it are going to be significant if it's worth making it into the iPet Goat 2 video as they're part of the big plan. But that's one shark. I suggested that's Bolton. There he is, John Bolton in Street Sharks. He is the great white shark that can bite through metal and things, or steel and things. But here we have 5 sharks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And maybe even one that's blown out of existence here. But it looks like that shot is just to the side of this one. And in the past, I've talked about these as possibly being months related to the tanks, where we have the same number of tanks. And perhaps this is going, from July, August, September, October, November. So July through November, more or less the months of the Neptune retrograde, which begins June 23rd and goes to November 29th. And so you could have these 5 sharks during this period, if there's 5 separate ones. And certainly they have 5 for a reason. And it may be more than just the months. And I suspect that it is. So let's take a look at possibilities for these sharks. The first thing I think we should look at is we have a shark that comes out of the 23rd, but here we have a shark that comes out of what? This shark actually begins right with the lockdown. Okay? Right with the lockdown, more or less in March here, with the lockdown and pandemic declaration. And so I think one of the 5 sharks has already been, quote unquote, loosed on the world, and that would be with the virus pandemic lockdown. That is a part of the big plan, and that is one of the sharks. I'm almost positive, and that's why we have the shark fin here, and it's going in this direction, suggesting the shark is going in this direction. As an aside, for you all who want to think through this, notice that April's the only month with an ear like this. Obama has a similar looking ear when they have his face come up close to the screen. It actually sort of matches pretty well here. We know we have Trump here. This may be Obama, and we see him being all scraped up like he's trying to get in and wants to have a bigger role. I don't know if that's what's going on. There's as one additional interpretation. It looks like Trump is actually the one tying him down from the scene, if that's what the Obama month. But anyways, the Obama child, excuse me. But I don't want to get sidetracked there. I just want to mention it because I'm looking at April and it's in my mind. But so we have one shark here coming out of March, and I've got dogs going crazy. I'm sorry if you hear that. So out of March, another one we have, of course, we talked about. That's the Bolton book. That looks like it's coming out the 23rd, or scheduled to come out the 23rd, and could hit either by causing some effects that are politically difficult for the president by the beginning of July, or perhaps uprisings, riots, who knows? I don't know. I don't have a clue. But the idea is that it looks like the Bolton book comes out as a shark that attacks President Trump. So there's shark 2. But this isn't the only target of this shark. This shark looks like it's going at the president. That's why they have the position there for the two presidents, Bush and Obama, and then the implied position of Trump when he shows up. Of course, they couldn't include Trump here in 2012. The shark also looks like it's aiming at the U.S. coast. It also looks like it's aiming at this house on fire. Now, if you look at the house on fire, some people have mentioned, and I can't find who, but it wasn't my idea, that this looks like an M, the flames. And so perhaps this is Minneapolis, Minnesota suggesting that this is our starting point of the uprisings. One of the sharks would be the riots, the uprisings, the civil unrest in the United States right now. That, to me, is a plausible hypothesis, right? I mean, it makes sense that one of the sharks would be these uprisings. They're not a minor deal. They're a big part of the plan, it looks like. And so we would have the lockdown, shark number 1. That's the one that came out of March here. Then we get the Minneapolis, Minnesota starting point for the uprisings. And then, so you have your uprisings as a second shark. We also are going to have a third one, which is going to be not just the book, but the idea is that's going to lead to political unrest, right? This is going to lead to controversy politically. The system is going to be in turmoil. And on this whole unrest, I think this is also going to possibly tie into this period of June 21st to July 5th. When we look here, one commenter suggested, and it's a really good idea, not my idea, that what looks like is going on here, in the past I've said, well, now this looks like the effects in Africa of what's going on. That during this period of time there's going to be globally an impact, including in Africa. And perhaps that's true. I mean, sure, certainly the whole world's going to feel this in some way. That's just part of the deal. You can't have this big of a series of events without the whole world feeling the effects in some respect. However, this also can be sort of a racist portrayal of how the elites view Black Americans, sort of as really primitive people, like a tribal person. And notice that he has his upside down cross, and we've got the sort of skull and bones representation out here. The one represented as arming and getting this young person to go out with a gun and perform violence in an uprising is the elite. The elites. This is those people in the secret societies. They're the ones that are going to harm these people by arming them, making them bring up do the uprising, and then squash it at some point. And notice that he reaches down and he's going to untie this ribbon. The ribbon, I was trying to find a meaning of the pink ribbon, and one of the meanings, of course, is really the breast cancer awareness stuff. But they often talk about as hope. And so as he pulls this out, and he unties the ribbon, as he pulls it and unties it, her eyes go out at the same moment. She goes dark. Okay? In other words, there's no hope. This is a hopeless endeavor, and they're going to end it. Notice that we have in the scene on the gun, again, commenter point out the 7.5. We have a 7.5 there, and we have an eclipse. And we have the ribbon being pulled, it looks like, between them. That's not to say that this is going to happen immediately between them. I'm not sure. The 7.5 may be when there is a shot taken from a protester or supposed protester, or one that's blamed on the protesters, and would be cause for some sort of retaliation or government crackdown. Okay, so we have this here. I mean, and if you look at the right angle, it actually looks like there's a 23 in here as well on this side. So I don't know that we can view this as a strict chronology, but it is there. This is clearly, I think, given the context of the video, representing the eclipse. Here we see a 7-5. You see your sequence here. You have that. It looks like a 23. It depends on when you take the screenshot. May even be a 6 there too. But you can go ahead and look at that yourselves. I'm not going to dig too much for the numbers right there. But the point is, we've got the eclipse 7-5 and the ribbon being pulled, and it is an armed African American possibly being represented, the armed black person being represented by the elites, meaning that this is a controlled uprising that is going to lead to their loss of hope, okay, their loss of life, their loss of liberties, and so on. Now, and historically, I should mention that this is something that is a part of the long-term, probably long-term plan for the existence of FEMA. Let me go. I'm going to pause the video and pull that up. So there's this article interestingly, it was published in the Miami Herald when? On July 5th, 1987. I forgot the publication date, in which the author Alfonso Chardi, the reporter, found or wrote about a secret government that was identified, okay? Let me read just a few things here, but it's interesting in connection to the current riots and FEMA. Some of President Reagan's top advisors have operated a virtual parallel government outside the traditional cabinet departments and agencies almost from the day Reagan took office. Congressional investigators and administration officials have concluded. Investigators believe that the advisors' activities extended well beyond the secret arms sales to Iran and aid to the Contras now under investigation. Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, for example, helped draw up a controversial plan to suspend the Constitution in the event of a national crisis, such as nuclear war, violent and widespread internal dissent, or national opposition to a U.S. military invasion abroad. Notice the widespread internal dissent. In a secret assessment of the activities, the lead counsel for the Senate Iran-Contra Committee called it a secret government within a government. And I'm going to just continue reading excerpts here. You can find the article online. This is the part of the story that reveals the whole secret government within a government operated from the executive office building by a lieutenant colonel with its own army, air force, diplomatic agents, intelligence operatives, and appropriations capacity. Okay, a spokesman did not dispute the memo's existence. Let's see. National Crisis Plan. From 1982 to 1984, North assisted FEMA, the U.S. government's chief national crisis management unit, in revising contingency plans for dealing with nuclear war, insurrection, or massive military mobilization. North's involvement with FEMA set off the first major clash between the official government and the advisors and led to the formal letter of protest in 1984 from then Attorney General Smith. FEMA's clash with Smith occurred over a secret contingency plan that called for suspension of the Constitution, turning control of the United States over to FEMA, appointment of military commanders to run state and local governments, and declaration of martial law during a national crisis. The plan did not define national crisis, but it was understood to be nuclear war, violent and widespread internal dissent, or national opposition against a military invasion abroad. The plan was protested. The officials said the contingency plan was written as part of an executive order or legislative package that Reagan would sign and hold within the NSC unit until a severe crisis arose. The martial law portions of the plan were outlined in a June 30th, 1982 memo by Gufrida. I don't know how to pronounce it, I'm sorry. Gufrida's deputy for national preparedness programs, John Brinkerhoff. A copy of the memo was obtained by the Herald. The scenario outlined, this is interesting, this is what I was getting to. The scenario outlined in the memo resembled somewhat a paper Gufrida had written in 1970 at the Army War College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, in which he advocated martial law in case of a national uprising by black militants. The paper also advocated the roundup and transfer to assembly centers or relocation camps of at least 21 million American Negroes, quote unquote. Okay? So this planned uprising that they're orchestrating to get, in this racist portrayal, treating Black Americans like they're tribal people or something, to get them to fire against or to rise up in violence against the government, something like that, is going to be used probably to squash them. You can get martial law, suspend the Constitution, and then start hauling people off to camps, starting with the quote unquote American Negroes, as they wrote at the time. So, back to our sharks. So, we got 3 sharks so far. We've got the pandemic shark. We have the Bolton shark. Remember, Bolton was involved in that Iran-Contra stuff in the 1980s. He was involved in the Iran-Contra affair. So it's not coincidental that he's being brought in probably to continue helping to ignite that flame and make it worse, the uprisings. And then we have the uprising shark, which will involve and has involved getting Black Americans and other Americans to protest and using agent provocateurs and things like this to make it look more aggressive than it perhaps is in many respects and to keep the rebellion going. But we have another shark here. On June 21st, we have under the eclipse a portrayal of Osama bin Laden wearing his CIA badge, doing an invocation, a prayer. Okay, and as he's praying, well, first, you see this 4 up here, possibly it's 7-4 represented again, but I'm not worried about that right now. So we have him praying, and as he's praying, this, I don't know, peninsula, island, whatever he's on, we don't see the back of it, is moving forward, it looks like. And as it moves forward, it is bumping this little flying shark. Now remember, he's got wings as well, and we've got these what look like nuclear missiles behind him as his weapons. Okay, and as he's doing this invocation, it's like he's praying to direct the shark. And watch, this hits the island, and it's going to start to redirect the shark. The shark is aimed this way, straight ahead, and he's turning it, turning it, turning it. As he goes, then he goes and continues a little more up here in his prayer. Presumably, this is still moving, and this is still turning a little bit. So what we have is a 90-degree plus turn. So it goes from this direction to that direction, possibly even back further, depending on how much it turns after we go to the seam. So what has happened? We get a redirect of the shark, and this shark is, I think, a different shark. This is the terrorist shark or war shark. And the direction it's being pointed is interesting here because it's like it's redirected. Most of the attention has been aimed at Iran in all of these, what's going to go on in the Middle East conflicts. If this is, as some people have suggested, a representation right here of like the Strait of Hormuz, and this would be right here. So you're looking at, here's the Strait of Hormuz, okay? And people have suggested it looks like he's there. That's where the Osama bin Laden character is. He's on the strait. Not on the strait, he's on I guess, this peninsula here. And this would be the strait. Now, if that's the case, I'm not positive of that, but let's just suppose it is. It has some resemblance for sure. And if it's aimed this direction initially, say if it's aimed straight ahead initially, it would be aimed into Iran. That'd be like where they've been targeting already, talking about all the conflicts, and they're going to go after Iran, all that. But if it's redirected 90 degrees to almost back, right? So if it continues spinning from here to there, so somewhere between 90 degrees and almost 180 degrees from where it started, then the target would be somewhere between, well, in this area. So basically the Middle East, the Middle East closer to Palestine, anywhere from Turkey into Mecca, all right? So we have this whole Middle East area that would be the direction of the conflict. If we see this shark being redirected from where people imagine it going, Iran, to where it's actually going to go over in the Middle East, which would line up well with our calendar in the fall, where we have Palestine represented in this gap. And so that would be a redirect of the attack over this way. So maybe this is the war or a war or terrorism related shark. And that one is also going to come eventually, but it's being aimed, it's being directed at this time, not necessarily fired. And that's an interesting thing because this, again, unlike the one that starts on the 23rd and hits just before the buck moon, we don't know when these actually happen. I mean, this could happen. This war could take off in this period. I saw a commenter mention that Israel is planning on annexing more land or territories or whatever, starting on July 1st or somewhere around then. It's been in the news. Those dates always change or frequently change. But the idea is that would be a provocation that could lead to this conflict over here, and it would be consistent with the shark being redirected. So the shark starting, but not necessarily leading to full war yet in this period, or maybe it will. Maybe we'll start to see shots fired right away, and the war won't explode into a massive war or the big events until we get into this area. I'm not sure, but there's your a fourth shark. I think I'm at 4, right? Let me see. So I've got So we've got 4 sharks so far, and then we get to this last one here that I'm not sure which one it is. This could be the same one, the Osama bin Laden shark. This gun looks like a shark as well. It has a mouth, right? So it's like that's the Bolton shark. Here we have this shark. It looks like a distinct shark from that one, and it may start a little earlier. It starts on June 21st, perhaps. It's really close to the eclipse, the most red object on the screen, and it comes before the 23rd. So that one, I'm unsure of still. That could be terrorism. It could be a tsunami, hurricanes. Who knows? But we're just going to have to watch. It may not hit again. It doesn't have. I don't see any evidence for sure that it hits right away. I'm not sure what this little island is doing in front of it. But we have 5 sharks here, and at least, and we get the 5 sharks from that opening scene, and altogether, it's going to present a big attack that begins in this period, June 21st to July 5th. Only one that I see for sure hitting before July 5th. The other ones may. I'm not sure exactly. But I think they're going to be more like the coronavirus, right? That shark that is like an ongoing, long-term attack. It just keeps going and going and going. They have it out there, pandemic, new wave, next wave, lockdown, all that stuff. And that's all part of that attack. Okay, and so we're going to see other attacks like that, but it looks like they're going to take off around this time, at least in redirecting the aim or redirecting attention in the Middle East, for example, to Palestine or that region. That's the sort of thing that looks like is in play. And at this point, I'm going to bring in something that is I almost don't want to bring it in because it seems so ridiculous. However, it received a lot of attention in the media, and it's become one of the biggest videos and most viewed videos on all of YouTube, and that is this baby shark dance video. Okay, and I'm only bringing it up because there's some coincidences that I want to let you guys take a look at. Anyways, so we have the baby shark dance. Now, why would I even care about this children's dance song? It's like a nursery song. Well, because it's got 5.7 billion views. This is one that they really put an emphasis on seeing. It was released in June 17th of 2016, this video. And 5.7 billion views for a 2-minute video of children singing a nursery song. It's crazy. So what is the song? And they've actually changed the lyrics a little bit and everything, so it's interesting to look at. It is a song where the kids go around doing this dance about the sharks. There's 5 sharks. There's baby shark, mama shark, daddy shark, grandma shark, and grandpa shark. They talk about the sharks doing this dance like they're biting. Once they introduce the 5 sharks, they say, "Let's go hunt." Then, when the sharks are coming, they say, "Run away," and they have the kids running away. Safe at last, when the kids are underground, if you want to look at it, this coral reef or whatever, they're down hidden below it. And then at the end of the video, they've got all the sharks with their little forks that incidentally look like your Neptune tridents, and they say, "It's the end. It's the end." And that's the end of the song. It's the end, when the sharks are coming. Now, the lyrics of the original song, they didn't create that song. This is an old nursery song. It's baby shark, mama shark, papa shark, grandpa shark, grandma shark, surfer dude. Okay, there was no grandpa shark. It doesn't look like in the one, at least this one that I found. So they only had one, two, three, four sharks. They added a fifth shark with grandpa. But we've got these other sharks, and instead of a fifth shark, they had surfer dude who gets attacked, loses a leg, loses an arm. 911, 911, 911, 911. We get this 911 reference in the original one. It's not working. It's not working. He dies. Reincarnation. Then you go back to them again, and it says that's the end. Like that's the end of the song, not it's the end, which has a totally different connotation and sense, right? When we say it's the end, that sounds it seems much bigger and more conclusive. Not we don't use it like this as an expression. It's the end of the song. We'd say that's the end, or that's the end. We've arrived at the end. But either way, whatever. I'm not going to make hardly anything about that. But the fact that it had 5.7 billion views, and I heard it the other day, and I was like, "What in the world? What are they singing?" And I watched. I was like, "Huh, maybe there's something there," but I'm not. I don't think much of it. But there's five sharks. Uh, so there you have it. The five sharks here. They actually are important. Um, I think we have an idea of at least what four of them are and sort of what to expect about the sharks. And the fifth, my guess is probably water events of some sort, but I'm not positive. I don't know. Let me know what you think. In the comments. Give some ideas. Let's brainstorm together and see if we can make some progress. All right. Thanks for watching. Take care. Like, subscribe, share, all that.